After weeks of market uncertainty and rising trade tensions between the world's two largest economies, the IMF now warning of the negative consequences, including the unpredictability with which these measures have been unfolding.
The surge in policy uncertainty is a major driver of the economic outlook. If sustained, the increase in trade tensions and uncertainty will slow global growth significantly. Reflecting this complexity, our report presents a reference forecast which incorporates policy announcements up to April 4 by the US and trading partners. Under this reference forecast, global growth will reach 2.8% this year and 3% next year, a cumulative downgrade of about 0.8 percentage point relative to our January 2025 WEO update.
The global lender also projects growth in South Africa at just 1% for this year, a slip from 1.5% the fund projected in January, while projections for 2026 now come in at 1.3% growth, down from 1.6% earlier this year. For sub-Saharan Africa, growth is expected to dip from 4% in 2024 to about 3.8% this year, recovering to 4.2% in 2026. As global pressures weigh on domestic impediments that have seen middle-income countries stuck in a low-growth trap.
It needs a clear, stable, and predictable trading environment, one that addresses some of the long-standing gaps in international trading rules. Monetary policy will need to remain agile and respond by tightening where inflation pressures re-emerge while easing where weak demand dominates. Monetary policy credibility will be key, especially where inflation expectations might de-anchor, and central bank independence remains a cornerstone. The cost of living crisis, a surge in inflation rates to double digits that we haven't seen in more than a generation. So the critical thing is to make sure that inflation expectations remain anchored. That everyone remains convinced that central banks will do what is necessary to bring inflation back to central bank targets in an orderly manner.
Some positive sentiment. US Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent is reported to have told a closed-door event Tuesday that the current US-China trade war was unsustainable and that he expected a de-escalation in the near future as the White House continued to strike a positive tone.
President about this before coming out here, and he wanted me to share with all of you that we're doing very well in respect to a potential trade deal with China. As I mentioned, there have now been 18 proposals in more than 100 countries around the world who are wanting to make a deal with the United States of America, and the president and the administration are setting the stage for a deal with China. So we feel everyone involved wants to see a trade deal happen, and the ball is moving in the right direction.
As pressure builds on the two economic giants to find an off-ramp just ahead of the finance ministers and central bank governors gathering in Washington, D.C. this week for the annual spring meetings of the World Bank and IMF.
We would like to see reduction in uncertainty, and it is hard to get there if the two largest economies are still finding their footing. And when obviously from the perspective of the world economy, it is important that the result of all this is a fairer rule-based system. Trade is like water. When countries put an obstacle in the form of tariff and non-tariff barriers, the flow diverts. Some sectors in some countries may be flooded by cheap imports. Others may see shortages. Trade goes on, but disruptions incur costs. Protectionism erodes productivity over the long run, especially in smaller countries.
Urging countries to work constructively to promote a stable and predictable trade environment. It calls on nations to find a path forward that must be both clear and coordinated, one that facilitates debt restructuring and addresses shared challenges, while targeting domestic policy and structural imbalances, thereby ensuring their internal economic stability in an effort to reinvigorate medium-term growth prospects. Sherman Bryceby's SABC News, New York.